So I promised you all a big update video, and I filmed it yesterday. Just filming it was a chore. It's kind of messy in here. I know we brought like the last of Roz's things from Iowa, but with me having been my shoulder injury and with all of her health issues, it's a colossal mess in here. So I didn't actually want to film in here, especially for that. And so I was gonna do it outside in the front porch. And there was like nothing but traffic going by, so I couldn't film it. It was just car after car after car. So I was like, I'll go to the skate park. It's like 7 in the morning. Nobody else will be there. I go there, and a dude came out to finally try and get rid of all the graffiti that people have painted on the ramps. It's not nice graffiti. It's usual teenage crap like dicks and balls and shit. Like, it's fucking vulgar, and I'm like, yeah, man, get rid of that shit. So I wasn't gonna disrupt him. So I did eventually get it filmed. I don't know how long it is. I might have rambled to the camera for almost an hour. I'm not even sure. But it's really personal, and I don't know if uploading it's right. At least not an hour. If I should redo it, maybe do it in sections. Maybe do a section talking about my shoulder injury and the stuff that was leading up to that. Make it a couple videos. Really break it down and be easier to digest maybe. I don't know. Anyway. This video is something I'd been planning on doing for years. I was still living at the old house when I was first started working on this. I thought about doing a bunch of them, like top 5 of this genre and that genre and whatever. But I had an album on today while I was doing some stuff around the house, and I thought, you know what, this is actually off my #1 pick here. Let's go ahead and film this because I really should put something out, and it would be fun. So it's a top 5 albums thing. I guess we'll call it the top 5 albums that really influenced me, both as a musician and as just a person. And it's going to be a little different. You're probably thinking, oh, there's going to be a lot of goth music on here. I've got my list here. No. I actually was going to throw some in, but I decided to make that a separate video because I think Roz might want to get in on this. Do like our top 5 goth albums of all time. So this is mostly stuff in the metal genre, and if you know me, it's like goth rock, metal, and then classical, and then basically everything else after that. So, excuse me, Thor popped his head out. He's like looking around like, why are you so loud? Because I gotta scream at the camera over there, dude. That's why. So yeah, we're gonna do 5 albums that really influenced me as a musician. They're in an order, but not in order. They're kind of in a chronological order of how I heard them. So like, the second one on here is something from like the 60s, but I didn't hear it till like the mid-90s. So we're just gonna go ahead and kick this off right at what's sort of the beginning. For now, I've always been into music, and I thought, you know, like I wanted to be a musician, but I didn't quite know what I wanted to play. I tried learning keyboards. I'd been fascinated by guitars and drums, stuff like that, but I wasn't really sure. But this is the album I heard that made me go, 1, I absolutely need to be a musician, and 2, I have to fucking learn to play guitar. And that is Meat Loaf, Bat Out of Hell 2. That came out, that would have been like 93, 92, 93. I remember listening to it a lot in the summer of 93. It might have come out in 92. But I remember hearing the radio edit of I Would Do Anything for Love and thinking, this isn't just a song, this is an experience. And then a guy my sister was dating actually got her the cassette. Like, this is how long ago this is. Not even CDs, we're on cassettes here. And I ended up basically stealing the cassette, and I still have that cassette somewhere, I think, in the basement. It's not playable. I wore that thing out. This is an album I've had, counting the one I took from my sister, I've gone through 2 cassette copies and 3 CDs that I have worn out. Just everything about this album is great, but like going back to I Would Do Anything for Love, if you've heard it on the radio, you've heard the radio edit, you know, it's like 3-4 minutes. The album version is like over 10 minutes long, and for as incredible as that radio edit is, it is just abysmal compared to what's on the album. Like, it's just mind-blowing. I can't even, I'm like having trouble putting the words together to describe this to you. But the whole album is like everything on this album is a hit. There's a track on there that's just a story. It's like Meat Loaf telling a story, and it leads up into the next song. And you hang on to his every word. And to this day, I will quote shit from that little story. The lines, I remember every little thing as if it happened only yesterday. I like to scream at people, just kind of like, they're like, don't you remember? And I'll be like, I remember every little thing as if it happened only yesterday. Like, less over the top than that. But most of them look at me like, what? And it's like, no, I'm referencing a fucking song. Sort of. Or the other line in there that I like to use is, it had the voice of a horny angel. I fucking love that line. It is hot in here, and I'm wearing a jacket because I'm an idiot. I do have my air conditioner going. So, but the thing with Bat Out of Hell 2, it led me to try and listen to a bunch of the other Meatloaf stuff. None of it really jived with me. I remember getting Bat Out of Hell 1, and it was just too old of a sound for me as a kid. Like, as an adult, oh my god, I love that. Like, you tell me Paradise by the Dashboard Light isn't like the greatest rock anthem ever. Like, but as a kid, it just didn't sit well. The stuff that came after, it's okay. But a lot of hits and misses. Dead Ringer, I think, is a little underrated for a Meatloaf album, but it's pretty good. But overall, it's just all comes back down to Bat Out of Hell 2. It's like the most perfect album ever. And this is my number 5. Of how we're doing this, but it would still be probably my number 5 if I had to rate these as a 1 through 5. But the best way for me to describe it is I don't think it's meant to be a concept album, but it can play off in that way. And to me, in my head, it's like I listen to that album and it's like every D&D, Vampire the Masquerade, Shadowrun campaign you've ever done. That first song sets it up, the second song is like introducing your party, and from 3 on, it's just that's your adventure, and this album is an adventure. It's got its highs, it's got its lows. Like the upbeat stuff, like Life is a Lemon, is just fantastic. But then the slower stuff, like Everything in the Rearview Mirror. What is that song? It's like Everything in the Rearview Mirror are not as close to that. That's not the name of the song. This shows how long it's been since I've listened to it. But yeah, the line is something like objects in the rearview mirror are closer than they appear. Oh my god, it's like the perfect power ballad. Like, just if you've not actually listened to the album and you've only heard like bits and pieces, go back and listen to it. It's phenomenal. Moving on. This is the one that's probably going to shock a lot of people. Now we're really going to go back. So it's summer. I'm like a lonely kid, not quite a teenager yet. This must have been 94, 95, so I'm 11, 12-ish. And I'm going through all my mom's old records that I found. My mom and my dad found all their old records in the basement, was going through, putting them on. This is also the summer I discovered my dad's copy of the complete works of Shakespeare. So I'm legit going through all my parents' old albums and reading fucking Shakespeare. And I get to this album that was my mom's. And that is Iron Butterfly In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. Now everybody knows that song. But as a kid, I hadn't heard this yet. I put it on, and first of all, that's the side of the album I put on, is the side with In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida on it. And it blew my mind that that one song was the entire side of that record. It's like a 17-minute song, just like a 5-minute drum solo. And if you solo too long, you lose people. But it's a 5-minute drum solo, and I'm sitting there like staring at the speakers like, oh my god, this is amazing. You're like just hanging on to every single beat. It's incredible. And that is not the reason this album is on the list. This is probably the closest I've got to any goth rock on here. And you're thinking, no, Iron Butterfly, man, that's like early metal type of a thing, more hard rock. You're not wrong, but there is a lot of elements of goth rock in this album, especially the way that they use both the guitars and the church organ. And by the way, we need way more church organ in music. It just sounds great. But the way they use that droning sound that you get a lot in goth rock. Now, granted, The Cure and Dead Can Dance are the two that people really think of when they think of that droning guitar sound. But it is in there just a little bit more slightly. And the song that really made me go, holy fuck, this is cool, and this one does have more of a goth feel to it, is My Mirage. I know that's not the song everybody talks about with this album, but I fucking love that song. And then reading the story behind how that song got written. It may not be a goth track, but it is probably like the most goth song ever written because of the story behind it and just the way it sounds. Go listen to My Mirage. It's really good. The whole album, though, is fantastic. It's another one. You've got more upbeat, happy stuff, and you've got the lower stuff, like My Mirage, that hits those more somber notes. It's just phenomenal. It's everything about being a human being can basically be found in this album. I've said the same thing about Typo Negative's Life is Killing Me, and I stand by it. That is not on this list, though, because that would actually fall more into a goth thing, so we'll move on. So, this one's going to be weird. Bear with me. Bit of a tangent. Excuse me, that did not go down right. So, it's about 2004-ish, I believe, 2005. I'm in Korea. I go to the Air Force Base in Osan. I pick up a bunch of CDs. They had a pretty nice CD store there. And I see Avantasia Metal Opera Part 2 was out. I'd heard Part 1 from a buddy in the barracks. I was like, dude, I gotta pick this up. I loved Part 1. Part 2 blew my fucking mind. That's what inspired me to write my first rock opera. Kind of funny. I did my goth stuff towards the end of high school and before I went in the military, and then I was doing more solo stuff. It was more goofy shit. I'm kind of really mimicking Tobias Sammet here because he does all the real goofy stuff with that guy, and then Avantage is more serious. And I was doing a lot of more goofier stuff at that point. Then Avantage came out, and I was like, oh man, this just if Meatloaf is the album that went, this is what music should be. Avantage's Metal Opera Parts 1 and 2 is what made me go, this is what music should be evolving into. Those are not the albums we're talking about, though. We're actually going to step it up 2008, because everybody thought, the Metal Opera was going to be its own thing, and that's how it was originally planned, but it did so well. People were, begging him for more. He got inspired. 2008, we got The Scarecrow. And I picked that up in May of 2008, right after I got out of the military. Went down to the exclusive company in Southside Milwaukee, the one that had Metal House in it. I don't believe Metal House had actually been founded yet, but they still had a really nice metal selection. Picked up Avantasia the Scarecrow. My mother had bought me a car right after I got out of the military. It was an old PT Cruiser. Put the Scarecrow into the album. That album did not leave that CD player until about 2010. And then from about 2010 to 2012, it only came out once every couple of months to throw a different album in just to switch it up, and then it went back. I basically listened to that album non-stop for 2 years and some change. I can't tell you what it is. Most people do prefer the Metal Opera. It is bigger, it is louder, it is more theatrical, but there's something about the Scarecrow, much like the last two albums I mentioned. I don't think there's a single song on there I don't like. With the Metal Opera, I like most of it, but the song I'm kind of conflicted with is Memory off of Part 2, which I like and I hate at the same time. And if you get the gold version, Tobias Sammet writes in there that he's not even really happy with that song. He thinks it was one of the producers on the album really made it help with the sound levels and everything, making it really stand out. And he's always kind of thought it was meh. And I'm kind of the same way. Some days I want to listen to it and be like, oh god, yeah, I love this. And other days it's on and it's like, this is the weakest thing on the album. Scarecrow doesn't have anything like that. I know everybody knows Lost in Space is just one of those phenomenal songs ever, but the whole goddamn album from beginning to end is just, if you've not really sat down and listened to Scarecrow, do it. You're missing out. Just put it on, sit down, light some incense, have a smoke, whatever you're doing, and really just listen to it. Let that album take you on its journey. It's practically life-changing. Next up, so I had a hard time. I had four of these picked out, and I needed a fifth one, and it was so hard. But my numbers 1 and 2 on this kind of go together. And I said these were somewhat chronological with the exception of Iron Butterfly, but this is going to be weird because my number 1 album came out also around 2008, I believe, but I didn't hear it until 2012. So for a while, the whole time I was in North Carolina, I was kind of away from both the metal and the goth scene. You didn't get much music like that out there. It was hard to come by. I just didn't have much. I got a few Blind Guardian albums and stuff when they got pretty big for a while for being in one of the Rock Band games, and you can start finding their albums in Best Buy, and I was able to keep up with Blind Guardian. I almost said Iron Butterfly again, but for the most part, I kind of stayed away from things. I just didn't have much time for music, and I went through some other stuff that really just kind of ruined it for me. So I came back to Wisconsin in 2012. I was going through all sorts of crap, my divorce and all this other shit. I go down to Metal House, pick up a bunch of used albums, and I grab two. I see one by Delain, that was a newer one, but they had a used copy, and then one by Sonata Arctica, and I'm like, these are both bands I like. So the first one we're going to talk about is Delain's The Others, which these two albums really go hand in hand for me. You would think they're not, but going through all this, there was such a mix of emotions going on in my head. Delain's The Others kind of fueled the angry part of me, if that makes sense. It just made me want to strive to do better and to be better than everyone else that had been around me that put me in this mindset. The title track, The Others, is actually about the Sophie Lancaster case, which seems weird because that had happened quite a few years before, and I guess the singer of the band had just heard about it and then decided to write a song about it. If you don't know, this is a big thing in the goth community. So Sophie Lancaster was a young girl in the United Kingdom. Her and her boyfriend were walking home one night. They basically got jumped by this gang of people who decided to kick the shit out of them because they were goths and they didn't like the way they were dressed. They started beating on her boyfriend. She tried to cover him up to defend him, and so since they couldn't get to him, they kicked the shit out of her, and she passed away from her injuries. It's a horrible, horrible story. It's worth looking into. That's something people need to be aware of. So Delain did the song The Others that starts out, the first line of the song is even, I'm walking with Sophie tonight, and the whole thing is about people who don't really follow into the normal trends of society and how we should kind of unite together as sort of one group of the others. But the whole fucking album, that song is great. Milk and Honey was the song that I really kind of got to me that I really liked. So, not much I can really say about that other than like the last couple. Just go listen to it. My computer just black screened on me. I need to pull my list back up. But Delain's The Others is a fantastic album, but I will say I don't think it's one for everyone. Like the previous three we've talked about, I think anybody would enjoy. The Others might not be for, like, I feel like people who are into the band Delain, they're like really, it's like the Birthday Massacre. There isn't really another band that's comparable sound-wise, and you either dig it or you don't. So, the other half of my equation. This one needs some introduction. This is an album, I heard it. I'd heard about this and I'd stayed away from it. But then when I saw it sitting there on the shelf, I was like, well, I like Sonata Arctica, I could use some music. Let's pick it up. So, yes, it's a Sonata Arctica album. As many of you know, they are one of my favorite metal bands. This is an album, like, it's universally hated. Everybody hates it. I've never heard anything good about this album. I have gotten in debates with fellow YouTuber Power Metal Gamer, like the guy who's really qualified to talk about stuff like this. We've debated this on YouTube. He hates the album. But I listened to it, went, oh my god, this is incredible. You know, I said Avantages the Scarecrow could be life-changing. For me, this album we're about to discuss was life-changing. Took it to my nephew's place that weekend, went, hey, have you heard this album by Sonata Arctica? And he goes, no. He's like, I've avoided that for years. Everybody says it's crap. And I'm like, let's just put it on. It's like sunset. We're sitting in his room in his apartment. Put it on. We just sat there in silence like this, just listening to the album. Album plays. Bonus tracks play. Everything ends. We sit there. We don't say a word. The sun's going down. There's just that little sliver of light coming in through the blinds. He just slowly gets up, walks over to the CD player, looks at me and goes, we need to do that again. I says, yeah, we do. He presses play, sits back down, and we spend like another good hour just sitting there, just taking it all in. And then we had like a 6-hour conversation on what we love about this album. So there's at least 2 of us now that love this thing. And then I played it for Roz on one of our trips to Iowa. I was telling her the same story. And I was like, you know what? I don't have the album on me, but it's on YouTube. Pull it up on YouTube and play it. So she pulls it up on YouTube. She plays it. And she's with me and my nephew. She's obsessed with this album now. That is Sonata Arctica, Days of Grey. I know everybody hates this album. I don't think it was what people expected, because at the time they were more of a power metal band and this was more symphonic, operatic type of, more progressive even. It was very different. and I think that pissed a lot of people off. But for me, it was the right, like my anger and longing to just be more aggressive. Sonata Arctica was that other half, the yin and yang, that was the more mellow, more relaxed. I just think it's everything on that album is beautiful. Like Flag in the Ground's a little weird. I feel like it doesn't quite fit like the rest of the album, but it's still a good song and is a good time and one that we'll go back to. But that is an album I think doesn't get enough credit. I'm just gonna put it out there. If you've not heard it, do like what me and my nephew did. Put it on. Kind of like I said about Avantage is the Scarecrow. Put it on and just listen. Like really listen to it. That one is life changing to me. There are lines in that song or in that album that I just love, but the one I quote all the time has probably become my favorite quote. It's from this album, and the line is, "We cannot soar and still stay on the ground." I think that is the most important advice I've ever gotten, and it came from a song on an album that I guess I'm the only person who likes. Well, me and two others now. So if you've heard it and you hated it, go back and like take a completely different mindset. You know, it's like if you ever watched the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and then you watched the sequel and you didn't know anything about the sequel, so you're expecting more of the same, but the sequel is actually a parody of the original. You come out of the sequel going, "What the fuck was that crap?" But then you rewatch it again and realize, oh, it's supposed to be a comedy, and then you laugh your ass off and you go, okay, this is actually pretty genius. It's kind of like that. If you've heard the album before, just give it a listen again. Get rid of any expectations, anything else you don't like it, great. Try it with an open mind. You might change your mind. So those are my 5 albums that really had a big influence on me as a person, but also as a musician. Talk to Roz. We'll see if we can do one that's like our top 5 like goth albums or something, because that'd be really fun. So I hope you enjoyed this. Sorry the update video didn't get uploaded. I'll see what I can do about that one. I'll at least redo part of it and talk about the shoulder injury. But until then, we'll see you around.